I haven't made an update video in over 2 years. And let me just say, you might want to be sitting down for this one because the MattShea scriptwriters have not been holding back. I guess I'll start by recapping the last update video I made. It was August 2023, and I told you guys I made a big decision, and that decision was to move back to Newfoundland. Now, just so you know, I didn't make that decision on my own. I had been living in Vancouver for a while. I had been dating a woman for several years, and we decided together that it would be the best thing for our future. So we packed up our stuff, we did a little road trip with the dog, and now we live in Newfoundland. Obviously, I was happy to move back to Newfoundland because this is where my friends and family are. This is where I grew up. But I was a little bit concerned because of the fact that my girlfriend didn't know anybody here. But I have introduced her to all of my friends, and she's made a bunch of her own, and things are coming along. As for the move itself, it was really cool to drive all the way across Canada. I've never done it before. I got to see a lot of my country, which, by the way, is really big. We drove through every province in Canada on our way to Newfoundland except for one, and that was Prince Edward Island, because you can't really drive through Prince Edward Island on your way somewhere because it's an island. Also, I said every province, not every province and territory, because we've got 3 of those up north and we weren't driving up there to see them. Overall, it was a nice, pleasant trip across the country, and I think the worst thing we had to deal with was my dog getting itchy. Luca just kept scratching himself, so we took him to a vet in Montreal and got him an anti-allergy shot. Also, when we took the ferry from Nova Scotia to Newfoundland, we booked too late to get a cabin, so we had to leave our dog in the car all night, and it was like 8 or 9 hours. And I was pretty worried about him, but that being said, I went upstairs, I sat down, and I slept all night long, which is pretty crazy when you hear what was happening on that boat. It wasn't that crazy or anything. It was just a really rocky night on the boat, and people were getting sick, and some guy was hurling right next to me. That's the last thing I remember. And then I went to sleep and woke up like 7 hours later. But apparently the hurling was happening all night long, and I just slept through it. Unfortunately, my girlfriend did not. Sorry, babe. Sucks to suck, doesn't it? Anyway, long story short, I lived in Vancouver for 5 years. I met a woman. Her and I moved to Newfoundland. Now we live in Newfoundland. And now I'm going to tell you what I've been doing since I moved back to Newfoundland. Or better yet, what life has been doing to me. Well, one thing I've been doing since I moved here is hitting the gym. I've been going consistently 3 to 4 times for the last couple of years, so thank you to everyone who noticed. I'm not saying I'm massive or anything, but I'm definitely a lot bigger than I used to be. And I'm starting to look at old thumbnails and notice how small my shoulders look. The funny thing about going to the gym is it's something I've always wanted to do. I've always thought to myself, maybe someday I will be the type of person who can go to the gym consistently. And then I just started doing it. When I first started going to the gym, I just wanted to establish the routine. So I would go in, I would do a little bit of cardio, and then I would get in the hot tub, and then I would go home. Pretty easy to do, and that allowed me to get the habit started, and then I added more in over time. I highly recommend, if you're someone who wants to get started on something but you're overwhelmed, start small and work your way up. And also, I believe in you. Before we go any further, I just want to say, I don't have the most exciting life, okay? I really only leave the house to go to the gym or get food. Otherwise, I'm usually just sitting right here in front of my computer in my basement. That being said, though, a few very, very important events have taken place since I moved. Okay, guys, I have a bad news sandwich for you now, but don't worry because I'm putting it between 2 delicious slices of good news bread. I took my girlfriend out to celebrate our 4th anniversary as a couple. The first thing I did was book a room at the nicest place I could find. It's called the Ryan Mansion. It's this beautiful, historic building with a staircase designed by the guy who designed the staircase from the Titanic. I got us a really nice room, and then I took her out for dinner. First, I took her to our favorite Mexican restaurant. We had some appetizers and some margaritas. And then I took her to a fancy restaurant where we had some delicious food. Only problem was, I had no appetite. I have a bit of a nervous stomach, and I was feeling extra nervous on this night because I had this keyboard set up back in the hotel room, and I had a box with a ring in it for her. And she looked at me over dinner and she said, "Babe, are you nervous because you're planning on proposing to me? Is that why you have no appetite?" What? Did you really just say that? Obviously, I couldn't be like, yeah, babe, you're right. I am about to propose to you and you ruined the surprise. So I was like, no. The reason that I don't have an appetite right now is because I drank too much coffee and the caffeine is turning my stomach. Look, that does happen to me sometimes, okay? So it was like a decent excuse. And just so you know, she still feels bad about what she said to me during dinner because, we went back to the hotel room and I played her a song and I pulled out a ring and I asked her to be my wife and she said yes. I don't even remember what happened for the rest of that year, okay? We got engaged, we became fiancé and fiancé. Everything else was pretty normal until like November. I have been putting off making this video for a long time, and while it is outside of my comfort zone to make a video like this, the reason I've been putting it off is because I don't really want to burden you with the sad parts of the story. But it is part of the story, so here goes. In November of that year, my dog Luca started acting off. He was having trouble getting up off the floor and he was having trouble with the stairs. And at first we thought maybe it's arthritis. At the time he was 10, almost 11. It was getting cold outside, so we just thought maybe it was affecting his joints and we got him an arthritis shot and nothing changed. It was also becoming clear that he was losing weight and he was also having trouble with his appetite. I was feeding him chicken and pumpkin and rice thinking he had some sort of stomach issue going on, but he just kept getting worse and eventually we took him back to the vet. So the vet takes Luca out back, she does some ultrasounds, and then she comes back in the room and she says to me, "You might want to call your fiance before I tell you this because it is not good news." Basically, my dog had some pretty serious internal issues. He had the big C word, he also had internal bleeding, and it was very clear that we needed to say goodbye to him. And man, was that not the hardest thing I've ever done in my entire life. I adopted Luca when he was 8 weeks old. He was just a puppy, and he has been with me through everything that has happened in my life. Good times, bad times, everything in between. No matter what happened, he was always there. If I was making YouTube videos in the basement, I'd go upstairs and check on him, make sure he's doing all right, take him for a walk in the morning, take him for a walk in the afternoon, and then all of a sudden, it's all just gone. And not a day goes by that I don't miss the absolute hell out of that dog. I don't really know what else to say, to be honest. It absolutely destroyed me when Luca died, and the next year was just crap. It's only been just over a year since that happened, but it took me about that long to actually fully grieve. And I'm aware that it's never going to stop hurting, but I'm finally at the point where I don't feel like a giant portion of my life is just missing. At least I don't feel like that all the time, because I definitely still feel like that a lot. All right, we got through the bad part of the sandwich, and now it's time to put that delicious slice of bread on top. I hope you're ready. I have been happily married for over 3 months. We tied the knot on October 4th, 2025, and I gotta say, it was a really nice wedding. And I know I probably should think my own wedding was nice, but seriously, it worked out really well, especially when you consider the fact that it happened outside in October in Newfoundland. It just so happened that the day we got married was one of the nicest days we had seen in like weeks. It was perfect weather for a wedding. It was sunny, it was a little bit warm, but not too warm, and there wasn't a lot of wind. Like, the stars had to align for that to happen, and I'm very grateful for it. I'm also, of course, incredibly grateful that so many of my family and friends showed up on that day to support me and my fiance/wife. And I know you want to see photos, so I will show you a couple. I posted one on my YouTube feed shortly after we got married. Here it is again. We took this one trespassing in an orchard. How romantic. And probably my favorite photo from the wedding is this one right here, where me and my wife are sitting down with my niece, who was like 2.5 in this photo. She came up and sat on my lap and she was eating food off my plate. It was super adorable, except she almost gave away our secret. We served wine to all the tables at the wedding, pretty standard. And then my niece was taking her knife, sticking it in my wine glass and licking the knife repeatedly. And she looked at me and she said, "That's juice. I like juice." No, it's not. Why would my wife be drinking juice instead of wine at the wedding? Am I right, guys? By now, you've probably realized what's going on. You've probably realized there's actually 2 slices of good news bread on top of the bad news sandwich. You got the "we just got married" slice and the "we're having a baby" slice. I'm having a freaking baby, guys. I'm gonna be a freaking dad, dude. What the hell? Why did I do this? Maybe you don't believe me, maybe you're in shock, but I'm gonna prove to you that there's a baby growing inside of my wife. And I don't mean in 4 months when he's born. I have photos of my child for you. Look at that. It really is a baby. It's got a foot and a leg and a head. So yeah, to put it plainly, I am gonna be a father in April. My wife is giving birth to a baby boy, a little MattShea, MattShea Jr., someone to take over my YouTube channel when I retire. I don't really have any bullet points for talking about the pregnancy, okay? I don't know what people want to hear. Am I worried? Am I scared? Absolutely. I'm also feeling quite at peace with the whole thing, if I'm honest. Maybe it's the fact that I can very clearly see my future ahead of me. You know, I've got an amazing, beautiful wife who takes care of me and supports me. I'm about to have a child. Like, how could it be any better than that, right? You may be wondering how this is going to affect my YouTube channel, though. And although I'm obviously not completely sure what my life is going to be like going forward, I am going to keep making videos. But I did make a pretty big decision recently. I have been using an editor for 3 to 5 of my videos a week for the last like 5 or 6 years. And as of the start of this year, I no longer have an editor. The main reason was so that I could save a little bit of money, considering, you know, things are happening in my life that are going to be kind of expensive. And it'll also give me more time to, you know, actually do editing, because I feel like it's going to be a lot easier for me to edit with a child around than it will be for me to record. I just need to figure out the recording part later as well. Look, there are lots of YouTubers that have successful careers after they have children, and I plan on being one of those YouTubers. I've made it 10 years so far as a full-time creator, which is pretty crazy. And yeah, it would be nice to keep doing that. I'm going to be a stay-at-home dad after my wife goes back to work after maternity leave. So that is going to be a whole other thing that I'm going to have to tell you more about when it happens. I will still be uploading videos. You can trust me on that one. But obviously my life is going to be a lot different once I have a child. So I can't expect my content to stay the same, can I? If you've got any questions at all, feel free to leave them down below in the comments and I'll try and answer them. And that's basically it. I mean, I know it's huge, gargantuan, massive news, but that's basically it. Yeah, just a kid. Just my entire life changing forever. Cool. Thanks for watching.